Hey, folks, I'm Rick Brusuelas, and with Joe Carlton, we host the Thursday Checkdown. There's never an off-season in fantasy football, and each week, our show brings you talented guests to bring you the fantasy football manager, be more successful while also having more fun. Tonight's show will be super focused on the Scott Fish Bowl, as many people are either already in their drafts or will soon start. So tonight's show will help you be more successful with help from one of the top Scott Fish Bowl analysts, Geoff Lambert of Going for Two Fadings. Welcome, Geoff.
What's up, guys?
And
how's it going, Geoff? Good to have you, man.
Yeah, glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Good. And how are you doing tonight?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. Had a long day at work, so I'm willing to chop it up. We're ready to chop it up with y'all with some Scott Fish Bowl stuff tonight.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you being a guest on the show tonight. And, we're going to hopefully help folks out in the chat already with questions, but also just try to get a little bit to know more about you. So why don't you, Joe, why don't you go ahead and kick us off?
Well, I want to shout out the chat. We already got some good ones in there. We got Tip, Rachel, Sam, Daniel. Appreciate you joining us. Hit the like for us. You guys probably already subscribed. I don't have to tell you to subscribe. But if there's anybody new in here, please subscribe. We appreciate it. So, Geoff, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, where you live, a little bit about your family if you want, anything you do outside of fantasy football, really anything you want to share about yourself personally.
Sure. I live about 30 minutes south of Washington, D.C. in Virginia. I've been here since 1993. I grew up in Newport News, which is about 3 hours south of where I am now. As far as what I do outside of fantasy football, I actually am a retail manager of a major hardware store. I'm sure you've heard of it, Lowe's.
Yep.
Well, I run here in Virginia. I've been doing that for 4 years, and before that, I ran a Home Depot for 4 years. So I've been in that business for quite a while. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not too much else. I have I'm married. I have one daughter. She's 12. We actually have our own podcast together, me and her. She's a big Star Wars fan, so am I. So we do a Star Wars podcast together. It's really fun. So, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Nice. I like that. So when did you stop playing fantasy football? How long you been at this?
Been playing since 1997 or 98.
Nice.
Yeah, somewhat. My first draft pick was Marshall Faulk as a Colt. If that tells you how far along that was, that was a long time ago.
It does. That was the year I started too, and my 20th round pick was rookie Randy Moss.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been playing for a while, on Yahoo for the longest time. In my home league, actually, that we started way back in 1997 is still going on. We've since flipped it over to Sleeper, and we've now made it a dynasty league. It's been a dynasty league for about 10 years now. So a lot of history in that league, obviously, with basically the same group of guys that we had way back in the late 90s. So it's pretty cool to get the guys together every year and do our rookie draft now.
That's awesome. I'm jealous of that because I don't have a league that I've been a part of that long. It kind of fell apart. We had one going for like maybe 8 or 9 years through the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I ended up venturing into the high stakes world, because there was just nobody that wanted to play with me that was serious about it, I guess. Yeah. You could say I couldn't find the right group. So that's how I ended up doing that. But definitely jealous of you of that. But
Okay, I've heard the word dynasty, but what types of leagues do you typically play in?
So most of my leagues are dynasty leagues. I do a lot of redraft charity leagues. Obviously, Scott Fish Bowl being one of them. I also run my own charity league. It's a very, very unique league. You think Scott Fish Bowl is unique. You haven't heard anything yet. We call it the GOAT League. Essentially, all the divisions. So it's an 18-team guillotine league. So each week, someone gets eliminated with the lowest points. But there's 6 divisions of 3 teams each. And each division is a team by itself. So you're encouraged to trade back and forth all season. You can collude all you want with your teammates, try to build the best team possible. You work together on the draft. You work together on waivers to make you set your waivers all properly. Your goal is to get one of you through to the end. And then the real kicker is we have power-ups during the draft where you can like steal players or force guys to draft a certain position, that kind of stuff. So it makes the draft process fun, as well as once you get into the season trying to, work your team to get one of your guys through to the end. And it's pretty cool because as you go along through the season, teams are getting eliminated. Your teams are getting better and better and better and better because you got all these great players that have been dropped into the pool. So been doing that league for a couple of years now. But most of my leagues are dynasty leagues. I've done vampire leagues. I've done, all kinds of other leagues as well, but it's mostly dynasty now.
And this is a question I usually ask, and I sometimes get the right answer, and sometimes, people go, oops, I better not say it because someone may be watching or listening. But how many leagues are you in this year?
I think I counted just the other day, and I still have a couple more that I haven't started up yet. I think I'm in 17 currently. I think 7 or 8 dynasty, and then a bunch of, like I said, the charity leagues. I'm in a charity best ball league. I'm in my own charity league. I'm in the Sky Fishbowl, obviously. I have a home league, a work league. So a couple redraft leagues mixed in there as well. So I think 17 is the number right now.
Great.
All right. So when did you decide you were going to get involved in the fantasy industry as a content creator?
I don't know if I ever decided it, actually.
Right.
I kind of fell into it. It was way back in 2015. I was talking to somebody at work and offered them a good piece of advice. I think at the time it was Devonta Freeman, the year that he kind of blew up out of nowhere. Tevin Coleman was the starter. I told him to pick up Devonta Freeman, and of course he rode him to a championship because he was the number 1 running back overall that year. And he made a comment like, man, you should like do this for a living. You should go, have a blog or something and give advice. And I was like, okay, you know what? That sounds kind of cool. So I literally went to Google that night and typed in, how do you start a blog? And found a step-by-step instructions on how to get a blog started, through WordPress and everything. And I kind of thought that I'd be begging my friends and family to go to my website. It's kind of like, thinking that I'd get maybe 5-6 hits at all. But I kind of picked up into the DFS market, and that time DFS was very niche, and my website kind of just took off. And I was kind of like, this is kind of fun. I got, I'm getting 1,000 hits a day. I then started the podcast. At the time was just audio only. We didn't even have this type of program back then. I literally had to call my guest on my cell phone and then hold it up to my mic so I can have a guest because I couldn't even connect this way. But yeah, I just kind of literally fell into it and just kind of slowly built on it from there. And realized that this community is huge, and these, there's a bunch of content creators out there that do this kind of thing. And I just kind of fell into some great group of guys that kind of helped me along. And now I've been kind of giving back, helping other guys come along and get their start in the industry as well.
And so that covers both going for 2 and going for 2 live shows, since that's the name of the what I guess has evolved into a podcast that you're running.
Yeah, so the going for 2 live is the umbrella for our YouTube channel. We have more than one show on the network. My show is on Wednesday nights, the Armchair Fantasy Show. And then during the season, we actually go 2 nights. I do the Wednesday night show, which is a regular season-long fantasy. And then we have a DFS show that we do on Friday nights. We also have pregame shows for the Monday night game, the Thursday night game. We have a Sunday pregame show, a Dynasty-only show on Saturday that only talks Dynasty. So we have a bunch of different shows under that umbrella.
Wow, and I get wiped out just doing 2 shows a week.
Luckily, I have a good team of guys that like to do it, so they log into the same account and they do their own shows. So luckily, I'm only involved in 2 of them, so I couldn't possibly do 10 shows a week. That'd be crazy.
Right. That is good. You have a team that can make their own shows, and it takes a little bit of the pressure off for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's see. Where are we? We talked about Discord. Did we talk about the Discord?
Not yet. In fact, that's a really good subject to bring up, since Geoff, you're so involved in Discord.
Yeah, so the Discord kind of, again, another thing I just kind of fell into. So it was probably 5 years ago now. Twitter at the time, it was still called Twitter back then. It wasn't called X. They had a limit on how big your DM group could be. So I was the 12th spot, and I was the one running the group, and I was trying to invite people, and it got to the point where I could not invite anybody else. I felt like I'm leaving people out. So the only way to combat that was to start a Discord. So I started the Discord originally as just the 12s. It was just all the 12s that couldn't join the Twitter chat. They came into the Discord. And then the following year, I was kind of like, why am I only limiting myself to the 12s? Like, just bring everybody in. We'll just get, a chat channel for every group. So I did that, and then I created a main channel group, and then everybody, of course, is asking about, where do we mock draft? Where do we mock draft? I was like, well, you know what? I got everybody in here. Let's mock draft too. So I built a mock draft channel, and it kind of just, snowballed from there and kept on growing. I think we're now over 2,000 plus members. Not all of them are Scott Fishbowl stuff, but a lot of them are. They go there for Scott Fishbowl. They like to mock draft. They like to talk strategy. We do a Discord show through the Discord channel every year. That's a strategy show that we kind of talk strategy with the people there in the Discord. So it's kind of taken off from there.
Can you tell us a little bit more about, because I know some folks aren't already aware of or aren't already connected to Discord. Why don't you tell us kind of the process and, obviously, there's no fee to do so, but, what are the steps that someone that isn't already on Discord, for them to go through this so they can get connected?
So yeah, the easiest way to do it is if you go to my Twitter profile, there's a link there at the top that's for the Discord channel. And once you click on that link, it'll take you through the onboarding process. I've gotten a little better with Discord and how to use it. It'll actually take you step by step. And, are you here for the Scott Fishbowl? If you say yes, it gives you the Scott Fishbowl role. Do you like fantasy football? If you say yes, it gives you a certain amount of channels you can view. So I've been able to kind of break it up and make it super simple for people that don't know how to use Discord, because it is a little overwhelming at first, I will admit, especially when you log in and you see that there's like 30 channels, different channels for everything. You're like, what in the world did I just get myself into? But once you understand how to use it and, how to tag people and how to tag groups, and it's so much better than Twitter, because Twitter is just one long, endless stream of messages. And if there's anything important was in there, it's like lost in the stream. Whereas I can create separate channels for like the mock drafts, for example. Usually you do a mock draft in a channel. It's just a long stream. By the time, you're filling the mock up, the mock is, 10 pages above. You got to scroll all the way back up to find it. I created a separate channel for all the mocks. So when I say, hey, there's a mock draft, you know where to go find it. It's going to sit there all by itself. There's no chatter. There's no way it's going to get lost in the sauce. Easier to find that way.
And I know Joe's going to start talking or asking about the Scott Fishbowl, but before we leave Discord, for a lot of people are interested in doing mock drafts. And, of course, there's mock drafts that are being done on Sleeper that, people are finding. But one of the best sources is on Discord through your channel. So can you tell us a little bit about that and, how often those mock drafts happen? I think the right answer is a lot of the time, almost continuously. Yes. But can you tell folks who are interested in mocking as they're prepping for Scott Fish?
Sure. Yeah, we have a couple different guys that I've designated that are the mock draft creators, because I want to make sure that we keep it streamlined and don't have a mass of people posting mocks and then only half of them get filled. So they post them. We post probably, I don't know, sometimes 10 or 15 a day if people are in there willing to mock. As long as we're getting people to mock draft, we'll keep putting them out. We do slow mocks, we do speed mocks, and then a friend of mine through the industry, Seth Keller, shout out to him, created a Google sheet for me that collects all the mock draft data into a Google sheet and spits it out so that I can publish it and say, hey, this is the ADP of our mock drafts. Makes it super easy. All I do is copy and paste the ID of each mock into the spreadsheet. It automatically does its thing, spits out the ADP, and I publish it to the website. So that's a big tool people like to see. And then I also have a channel in the Discord that kind of collects other tools that aren't necessarily just my tools, but it's a forum setup where I've got different tools that people put out. People use like Mike Clay's projections, and they put it to Scott Fishbowl scoring to give projections of that. So I put that tool in my Discord. Of course, the Spike Week, or I guess now it's on fantasylife.com, which is the main tool. I got a link for that in the Discord. So you can kind of go to the Discord and scroll through that forum and see all the different tools that people have put out. and it's all in one place. Plus, like you said, you got access to the community. You can ask questions. I've set it up where you can tag at SFB15, and everybody who has that role will get alerted like, hey, someone in the Discord wants to, ask a question, and everybody knows to go in there and check it out. So it makes everything really easy.
It is, and a lot of people.
Jamie is one of the best live chat contributors there is. He's in every any podcast I tune into. He's in the live chat. It's like
he's in ours all the time. Jamie's actually one of those going for two people that I've mentioned earlier that does shows. He does shows on Going for Two Network. So shout out to Jamie. He was in my show. He was on my show chat last night actually.
Nice. So why don't you tell us about your involvement in Scott Fishbowl and Fantasy Cares for that matter? And I'll go ahead and put up that banner.
All right. Yeah. So I've been doing, I've hosted the live drafts for DC the last couple of years. And because of that, I've kind of grown in the Fantasy Cares and getting donations. And it's really it's a passion for me. In the last couple of years, I've gone on the Potathon and was able to announce how much money we raise as a small community. And right now we're about $1,500 away from hitting our goal of $7,000. So right now we're doing a donation match up to $1,500 through Saturday. If you use our link, fantasycares.org/GF2, and any donation put in there between now and Saturday, we're going to match that 100% up to $1,500 so we can hit our goal. And hopefully we hit our goal, and then when we match it, we'll be well over our goal as well. So I can go on the Potathon on Sunday and announce our final number, which I think last year we were just over 7,000, which is why this year I made the goal 7,000. I want to be able to hit that and then beat it as well. So again, that link is fantasycares.org/GF and the number 2.
And congrats for getting on to the Potathon this year. We had Sal Lido as a guest on the Give Back show, and he talked about, before the show it was 2 weeks ago, so it was before the show was actually, I guess, fully baked. And knowing that he has a shorter Potathon this time, I'm sure those 30-minute slots were under a lot of contention because there's so many really smart people like you to be squeezed into that show. And so the fact that you got on there, great job. And can you remind folks what time you're going to be on, just so that
we'll be on
through
3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, the 6th is when I'll be on there.
Yeah, so you didn't get one of those 2 a.m. in the morning slots then?
No, thankfully, no. I've been blessed to have some pretty decent slots over the years, so this one's another good one.
Awesome.
All right, so we know that you run the Washington, D.C. live event for Scott Fishbowl. Have you ever attended any other live events?
No, just the DC one. The last 2 years I drafted. This year I'm not going to draft in my live event. It's just too hectic trying to host. We've even expanded, to 5 leagues this year. Last year we only had 4. Now we have a 5th league, so it's like 60 people plus all their guests, and trying to do everything. It was just too hard to draft. So, but yeah, those are the only ones I've ever done live, was the 2 DC drafts.
And how about the Fantasy Football Expo? Have you been to this, or do you plan on going this year?
I have not, and Bob Lung literally DMs me every single year saying, "Is this the year you're going to come, Geoff? Is this the year?" And every year, unfortunately, it falls on the same weekend that I go on vacation. And I've just not been able to maneuver it because of my daughter's school schedule, my wife's work schedule, my own personal work schedule. Just never seems to line up where I can do both our vacation and the expo. So I've never been. But Bob Lung every year reaches out to me to see if it's a possibility. He even tried to convince me. I was like, "You get a beach, maybe I can convince my wife to go there." And he's like, "Well, we got a water park opening. Maybe you can bring her to the water park." I'm like, "Yeah, water park isn't a beach to my wife. She needs the beach. We got to be a beach."
I hear the Hall of Fame is very romantic too. Yeah. So
yeah, I'll try to sell that one. See if that one works.
Yeah, probably not. And you mentioned that you're hosting or coordinating the Washington D.C., but not able to draft while you're trying to juggle all the things that are going on. So you're doing an online version of slow draft instead, right?
Yes, I'm in the 90210 division is the division, because every year that we've done this, I always want to get like a fictional team. I don't want to have like a real location. Even when they did the cities, I picked a fictional city, but Scott mistakenly put all of the fictional cities on my fantasy league, MFL. And I don't like MFL. So I had a DM Scott like, hey, Scott, is there any fictional league that is sleeper? And he says there's not, but there is this one league that has nobody in there yet. So I'm going to make that one sleeper just for you. So the 90210 division, as far as I know, is the only fictional sleeper division out there. The rest of them are all on MFL. So that was the one I was stuck with.
So this is the Beverly Hills teams that are...
Yes.
Whatever their high school was called.
Yeah, Beverly Hills 90210. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, nice. I bet it's going to be fun too.
Absolutely. It looks like we got a good group of people in there. I've already seen some of the people in the division, and it seems like a pretty good group. So I'm looking forward to it.
So Washington, D.C. So are your local teams your favorite teams? Or I know you're wearing a Boston Red Sox hat, but do you have local teams that you root for?
No local teams that I root for. For football, I'm a 49ers fan. Grew up in the 80s. I was a military brat, so I didn't really have a home team. I was kind of moving all over the place. So, they were winning Super Bowls back then. I was like 7 or 8 years old. So that's who you root for, the winning team. Not to mention my dad was a Saints fan, which if you go back to that time, the Saints and the Niners were in the same division. So I got to beat up on my dad's team twice a year. So that was another reason why I picked the 49ers. And then I'm not really a big baseball fan, which is why I'm wearing the Boston hat. I mentioned before show that I have a friend who lives in Boston. He gave me the hat. The hat looked good. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to wear it. I'm not really big into baseball. And as far as basketball goes, I'm a huge NBA fan as well. But I'm a New Orleans Pelicans fan, which is interesting because you don't hear that very often. I started as a Charlotte Hornets fan. Way back when they first came into the league, I think like 1988, I think was their first inaugural season. And that's when I became a fan of the NBA. So I figured they're a brand new team. I'm going to be a fan of them. I lived in Newport News. I was close enough to Charlotte that I got their local channel so I can watch all their games. Of course, then they move to New Orleans. They changed their name. And then Charlotte Bobcats now becomes the Charlotte Hornets. And then all the history that I'm used to, with the Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning, all goes to Charlotte, but I'm stranded with the New Orleans Pelicans because that was the team I was rooting for. So I'm one of the few fans that sort of stuck with the Pelicans, the former Charlotte Hornets, even though all the history now is back in Charlotte.
Don't forget Muggsy Bogues.
Yes, Muggsy Bogues, Kendall Gill, all those guys. Love
that
them.
was my NBA Jam team right there.
Yes,
Charlotte Hornets.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So you root for the 49ers.
49ers.
So we know they're a pretty good team, but any thoughts on how they're going to be in 2025?
So I'm on record saying that we're probably going to be just above 500. I don't know if we're going to be a great team this year. We're not really in a rebuild. I think we're in a reload, but I do think that we are on the right path. I know there's a couple of people that were kind of upset that we let a lot of people walk, but I think it was a good thing. I think we needed to hit the reset button. I told everybody last year we weren't going to be good. After the Super Bowl, I was kind of like, we went all in. We pushed all our chips into the center, to go for the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we lost, and it came back to bite us. Injuries last year hurt us. We just weren't a good team last year, and I kind of predicted we weren't going to be a good team. And I think this year we're going to be moving in the right direction. We won't be as bad as last year, but we're not going to be, I don't think, even a division winner this year. We'll be like 9-8, 8-9, somewhere in there.
So go ahead, Rick.
I was going to just ask a question about Michael Williams. I'm in a bunch of rookie drafts, and so he's been an early target of mine as a defensive end. Any thoughts on how he's going to blend into, the 49er defense has always been a pretty tough defense. So,
I think it's going to be good. We got Saleh back, Robert Saleh, our defense coordinator's back. He gives that energy that that it's infectious to all the players. Fred Warner's still there, Nick Bosa's still there. So I think that the defense is still going to be pretty good. Saleh will get the most out of his guys. I mean, I know he went to the Jets as a head coach and was considered a failure, but if you look at that defense when he was there, they were still
damn. It was good. Yeah. As soon as they got rid of him, that defense fell apart. Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the defense will be very good this year. That's the one thing I think we can lean on. I think Brock Purdy's a quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. That's going to be how we win games. Don't turn the ball over, play good defense, run the ball, and we'll win games like that. We just won't be good enough to win enough games to do anything with it.
So now my question about the 49ers, outside of George Kittle, which pass catches do you like? Like, do you have any confidence in Ayuk, or do you feel like he might be down the stretch? Is he going to take a little while to get going? Do you like Ricky Pearsall to step up in that time? Give us a little rundown on what you think.
I do like Ricky Pearsall. I'm not really high on Ayuk this year. I think
me
on a pup or something. Yeah, I think he misses a good portion of the season, so I'm not really too high on him. I do like Pearsall. I think he steps into that Debo role. I think that was already the plan when we drafted him. You know, everyone say, "Oh, we don't need a receiver. We got Debo, we got Brandon Ayuk." But Pearsall was kind of the Debo replacement, which is why we traded him to Washington. But really, I think for the cost, because I think Pearsall still has like a exciting name, and he's coming up into his second year, and he's exciting. He's going a little bit higher in ADP. But I really like Jawan Jennings for the price that you're paying for him. He had a great year last year, a monster year last year. And if you watch I watch every single game, every single snap. Brock Purdy relies on him a lot on third downs. He's kind of his third down guy. He's always had the best hands on the team, and he's always on the field because he's a great blocking receiver as well, which of course Shanahan loves to have blocking receivers out there. If you watch his tape, even when he's not part of the play, he's downfield blocking for the running backs. And I think he's going to have a really good season, especially from where you can get him. He's practically free in most leagues. So Jawan Jennings is a guy I'm looking at for sure.
And the other part of the offense is, what are your thoughts on Christian McCaffrey, and will he, survive the season? And then what do you think about Garendo as his backup?
Yeah, so Shanahan, even going back to his dad, they've always been, we can pretty much make any running back good. It seems to be. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you got a talent like Christian McCaffrey combined with the Shanahan offense, it's magic, right? I mean, we saw that season 2 years ago where he was just a beast. But the thing with Shanahan, and I've always said this, is for some reason he never tends to lighten the workload. No matter how injury prone the running backs are, if you're the guy, you're the guy, right? I mean, he did that even with Elijah Mitchell in his rookie season. He was injury prone. He came back the next year and he got injured again because Shanahan just keeps giving you the ball. Like, you're just going to keep running the ball until you get hurt, and we'll replace you with somebody else. So I think Christian McCaffrey is still going to get that huge workload. They're not going to limit his workload at all. Can he hold up? I don't know. So I think if I'm drafting Christian McCaffrey in any league, I will be handcuffing him with Garendo, who I think can be a solid contributor. We saw last year, even the limited time that he was able to play, he was pretty good there as well. So I do like Garendo as a handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. If you do handcuffs in redraft, I don't handcuff too often, but if you do handcuffs, he's the one you want.
Definitely. Thanks. So we're going to dive into the Scott Fish Bowl. Sorry for the pun. But so what changes in the Scott Fish Bowl rules do you think are going to be the most significant?
So I think the one that everybody talks about is probably the least significant one, and that's the IDP nature of it. Everybody wants to bring that up, but really that affects one player, right? I mean, it's Travis Hunter and nobody else. So that particular one gets all the headlines, but it's not really the one that affects the way you play. I think it's going to be the fact that it's all flex, right? I mean, you could not have a quarterback and be fine. You can draft all running backs if you wanted to. You can, there's so much you can do with that. And I think because we're so focused on positions, breaking that from your psyche, like, oh, I haven't got a receiver yet, I need a receiver.
Yeah, you don't have to.
You don't have to. Just take the best player. I mean, literally block out the names and look at your projections and just take the next guy in the list. That's all you really got to do. Obviously, you only can start 2 quarterbacks, so you got to watch that part of it. But really, there's no positions. You can literally draft any kind of team however you want. And I think that changes really how everyone drafts. And because those positions are still there, the super flex positions, people that aren't really paying attention at this time of the phase of Scott Fish Bowl are still drafting quarterbacks way too early. If you look at some of the numbers that I've put out, Lamar Jackson, as far as points last year, was the only top 12 player overall Most of the quarterbacks would have been second-round picks based on their points last year, but the quarterbacks are still being drafted in that first round. So I don't think you have to reach for a quarterback in the first round. Wait to the second, third, fourth, or even fifth round to get your quarterback. And stack up on receivers that get volume, stack up on running backs that are going to get volume, and then get your quarterbacks towards the end of the fourth to fifth round.
I agree with that. I think the quarterbacks will provide you a nice, high, consistent floor. That's basically what I don't think you want to go without one or two. I think you should still get two.
Absolutely.
But like you said, there's no need to be reaching for the elite ones for sure. I agree with that. Even though the passing touchdowns are still 6 points, but all that does is further deepen the quarterback room, if you ask me, because now some of the passing quarterbacks that take a little ding on the 4-point system have a little bit more value.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You could definitely, I like that weight on quarterback.
And I've done my draft at least the first 15 rounds so far with the 10 in Dallas and then the rest online. And I waited until at the time it just felt so bad because I'm always drafting a quarterback in the first round. In fact, I even set my my draft position so that I would get one of the top three. I wanted either Lamar, Allen, or Jaden Daniels. And then all of a sudden, boom, quarterbacks weren't important anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at the first two picks as being, Bijan, Jamar Chase. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, who am I going to pick at the third spot? As it turns out, I was able to get Bijan at the 103.
Nice.
And I held off from getting quarterback until Trevor Lawrence. And at the time, even I was thinking, gee, I waited too long. Gee, it would have been great to get one with a little bit more running. And then my second quarterback, I waited way longer and I got Bryce Young. So, I've got two quarterbacks. Actually, I have a third because at this very late stages, the dart throws at running back, which I usually do, but there was Tua still there. And I said, what could it hurt? Is at this point, he might be more points than any running back that, replaces a starter. So, so that's obviously impacted, although a lot of people were drafting quarterbacks early.
Yeah, I think that's just a mindset. People don't really know the math behind it, and it's not necessarily that you have to. Now, Lamar Jackson is probably the one that I would draft in the first round. Probably even Jaden Daniels would probably go in the first round as well, because they also have that running ability, which separates them from like the Joe Burrows. I've seen Joe Burrow go in the first round, and I don't think he needs to go in the first round. He should be a third round pick at best.
Right? Yeah.
Unless Joe Burrow has 50 touchdowns, which is possible. I don't think he's valuable in this format. So I think it's it's all based on that running ability.
He's one of the ones that if he does fall, he's a nice one to score in like the third round, like you said. So much like the last couple of years, volume is king in this format. So why don't you give us some of your favorite high volume players that you're targeting in these drafts?
So one guy that, because I did a comparison chart, I took last year's stats and I did, the Scott Fishbowl scoring side by side to a regular PPR league that you would play, a home league or whatever, just to see the difference in points and where everybody fell. And one of the guys that jumped up tremendously in this format is Alvin Kamara. And he's the one I'm taking further. I'm taking him earlier than most people. I'm at the 112, and in all of my mocks, I've been taking him at the 201. So right after I take my first round pick, I take Kamara. But his ability to do a little bit of everything, like he's kind of like Bijan Robinson light. He catches the passes, he gets the carries. He's the main focal point in that offense. And I think last year, I believe in this format, I think he was like the 4th overall player in points based on last year. And I think he can do the same thing again this year. Getting a little bit older, but I think he still has that ability. So he's one guy I'm definitely looking at. Another guy that I've been getting a lot at the 301, because we hadn't talked about tight ends yet, but of course they get the little bump, tight end premium McBride and Bowers are off the board usually in the first round. I've been getting George Kittle at the 301 spot pretty consistently. And, in points per game last year, George Kittle was the number one tight end. He had more points per game than Bowers or McBride. The only thing kind of holding him back, of course, is injuries, because we do know he plays, a very passionate brand of football. Unfortunately, with results sometimes he can get getting hurt. But he led the entire NFL last year in yards per target. And that's just not tight ends. That's every position. He led the league in yards per target. George Kittle did as a tight end. So he's going to be a monster, I think, in this format, as long as he can,
stay
stay healthy. I think he's a great one.
I got him at 403. So,
oh, that's good, Rick. That is good value for Kittle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So along with Robinson, Bijan, Irving, London, Kittle, Caleb Johnson, Tony Pollard, which I think is going to be another medium late-ish running back that could get some high volume.
Yeah. So you got a really good team there, because you got London, another guy that I've been targeting. I haven't been able to get him in the mocks yet, but he's another target monster. I think he was number 3 in targets last year. He's going to get a ton of targets again this year. So he's another target monster.
Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson too. Such a nice price this year.
Yep, because everybody's down on him because Justin Fields is there and they don't know how the offense is going to look. But I think Justin Fields is going to target the heck out of Garrett Wilson. So yeah, absolutely, he's a good one.
That's a nice. The one thing I like about the Jets is right now as it appears, it looks like it's a nice consolidated target tree. Like this is why I'm in on Brees. I think Brees is probably going to be the focal point, really. Like you said, Garrett Wilson will get most of the targets out wide, but I feel like the whole offense might center around Brees. I could see him, maybe getting 70, going over, 70 plus catches again. So.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, Brees is another one of my targets I've been trying to look at as well. He's another good one. I think he has a nice little bounce back.
So now, you talked about best player available. If are there any positions you think have a more advantage than the other? Like, do you think wide receivers carry more value than running backs based on the receptions boost, or do you see it balancing it out because of the points per carry, or like everything factored in? Are there any positions that you like better?
Towards the top of the draft, I'm looking at those running backs because they're going to be getting the volume. As you get down into those later rounds, I'm looking at some of the wide receivers because obviously you can have a wide receiver 3 on an NFL team on a good offense that still gets volume. Like you look at those slot receivers, those guys get just tons of targets. They may not get the touchdown so much, but when you look at the comparison between where you're getting those receivers and then the running backs that are in that range, those running backs typically have to have an injury to be more relevant. So the receivers, I think, have a little bit more advantage as you get later into the rounds. But at the top there, I'm looking at tight end because of the advantage with the PPR, and then looking at running backs that do both catch and run the ball because they're going to be sort of that cheat code where you can get a little bit of best of both worlds.
So our draft, we had at 101 A-Chain. Which when he sat down at the table, he said, "I'm going to surprise everybody."
Yeah.
And again, as someone who was thinking, "Oh, well, I'm not going to get who I want to get," and I ended up getting. And then the very next day, that trade was made where John Smith went to Pittsburgh, and that was a big boost to A-Chain as well as the 2 wide receivers, and so he actually might have been onto something. The one thing I also noticed is that tight ends have been going very heavy in the middle to later part of the draft. I think people were going after, the Hunter Henrys and the Tucker Crafts. And so if you're going to try to take advantage of that extra point that you're getting as the tight end premium, you're going to have to get them earlier than you would have expected because even over wide receivers, the tight ends were getting super popular.
Yep, absolutely. That tight ends are going are going up the pretty far up the board there. Like I said, Bowers and McBride are first round picks. Kittle, you got him in the 4th. That's excellent value right there. But I mean, Laporta's pretty high up there. Mark Andrews, one of my favorite tight ends. He's been kind of sneaking up in the ADP, but it's Evan Ingram. I think he's going to be a monster this year in that offense. We kind of saw a glimpse of what a tight end can do with his caliber in a Sean Payton offense when they had Jimmy Graham. I think he can fill a Jimmy Graham type role. He has a skill set. It's just, can he stay healthy? But I think he's one that's going to go 6th, 7th round, somewhere in there, that I think can be a monster in this format.
Yeah, he went the 8th round in ours, but again, I think
that's great. That's great value. I like the comparison because when I look at Denver, I see Marvin Mims being Kenny Stills. I see Cortland Sutton being Michael Thomas. But and RJ Harvey being like a Kamara, but like Kamara light. I mean, we don't know his ceiling yet, so I can't say Kamara. But they're just it seems like that's what is definitely going on there. So Evan Ingram being Jimmy Graham is could be great value right there in round 7 and 8.
And are there other players that you like that you would suggest to play? Of course, you probably don't want the people in your division. Hopefully they're not listening, but are there other players that you like, I guess, either above ADP or, more than other analysts are, liking?
Yeah, there's a couple guys, and just on the hope they're not watching thing, I've been doing this content thing for so long that at this point, I don't care. Watch my show, and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it, and then I'm still going to win. So that's how I look at it. Like, so
still have to execute, right?
Exactly. Still got to pull it off. Exactly. So I'm going to mention one guy, and Jamie's in the chat still. If he's going to give me a hard time because he always does whenever I mention this guy, but Keon Coleman is going so late, and we're talking about a guy that's going to get 90% of the snaps in a high-powered offense. He's a big body receiver. We kind of saw him coming into his own last year before he got hurt. He had a couple games in a row where he had a really good game. Josh Allen was looking for him, and then he got hurt and didn't really come back as strong. But Keon Coleman, I got him in my latest mock in the 10th round, and he is someone that I'm targeting in that late round because he's going to be in that offense. Anytime you're on the field with a good quarterback and a good offense, good things can happen. And they didn't go out and really do anything to compete with Keon Coleman, right? They kind of put their trust in him and say, okay, it's your show now. So I think Keon Coleman is the guy that I really like. I also like in the tight end room is Zach Ertz. If you look at Zach Ertz's numbers last year, I mean, he was a beast, right? I mean, I know he's old, and us in Dynasty don't want to touch those old guys, but this is not Dynasty. This is redraft. And I live here in the Washington, D.C. area, so I get to hear all the media. And word is that Zach Ertz is still looking, just as good as ever. Him and Daniels had a really good connection last year, and I think Zach Ertz, I got him, I think, in the 12th round of my latest mock, and I think that's tremendous value. I think Zach Ertz is going to have a really good season.
I'll give one of my favorite later round guys is wide receiver for Atlanta, Darnell Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize he had 107 targets last year, like very quietly. He had one game where he had 16 targets, and he's playing 90 to 100% of the snaps. I expect Michael Penix to take a little bit of a leap. This offense could be, if this offense starts clicking and he stays healthy, he definitely pays off at ADP. 100%.
Absolutely. I actually was all over Darnell Mooney last year. I did a show with Matt Price from DLF, and we were talking about guys that are super, super deep in the ADP, and he was the guy I brought up, and I talked him up, and he ended up being great for me. I bought him in a couple different leagues as a throw-in player in my dynasty leagues, and he was a beast, and I think he'll be just as good this year.
Any thoughts on Cooper Kupp?
Cooper Kupp is interesting, right? Because, I mean, Cooper Kupp, if he can stay healthy, is definitely a player that is going to be going super late. People have kind of given up on him. But, Sam Darnold is there. He had a really good season last year. Cooper Kupp is a veteran, and if he can find a way to sort of have his second act, so to speak, kind of like Adam Thielen did when he went to Carolina, If Cooper Kupp can stay on the field and be healthy, he is definitely someone to look at for sure. He will get the volume. He'll play in the slot mostly. I think they moved JSN outside and moved Cooper Kupp to the slot. And we saw in the slot, a guy like Larry Fitzgerald who moved into the slot late in his career. It helps them stay healthier. It helps them get more targets. They're slowed down a little bit. They're not quite what they used to be, but in that slot, they're not matching up against the number one corner. So I think Cooper Kupp can have a really good season for the Seahawks.
Yeah, and someone in our draft, finished off this 8, 9, and 10 picks and went Myers, who I really like, and unfortunately I didn't grab him in time. Juwan Jennings, you'd mentioned earlier with the 49ers, and Cooper Kupp. So, definitely, picking up a lot of good value at the tail end of the live part of the Dallas Stars draft. So,
yeah, solid.
So Jamie brought in a hot take, Mason Taylor, top 12 tight end this year. I kind of like it. Geoff, you're a dynasty guy, so I just made a trade. I'm in a really tough dynasty league. I was part of a dispersal draft this year. I took over an orphan. It was a 16 dispersal draft.
Wow.
It's basically a startup. After the draft was over, this is a tight end premium, 1.75 points per catch. Must start 2 tight ends.
Oh, okay.
No kicker, no D, 3 flex, 3 wide receiver. It's real deep starting lineups. I traded Rome Odunze and Michael Penix, which is my third quarterback. I have Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels of my other 2. I traded Penix and who did I say?
Rome Odunze.
Penix and Rome Odunze for CeeDee Lamb and Mason Taylor. How'd I do? What do you think of that one?
I like it a lot. Yeah, I like it a lot. I too like Mason Taylor. Not quite as much as Jamie. I'm not going to say top 12 in his rookie season. Not with Justin Fields as his quarterback. But I do like Mason Taylor. I've taken him in a lot of my rookie drafts. And CeeDee Lamb, of course, he's going to have a monster year for sure. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, the way I was looking at it is I'm giving up a quarterback in super flex, but I'm getting the best player in the deal. So it's kind of
agreed. And Mason Taylor, if he does pan out, especially because you said you have to start 2 or you can start 2 tight ends.
Have to start 2.
Yeah, so that's awesome right there to have a tight end like Mason Taylor. That you guys.
Taylor's going to be there. Well, I mean, I guess Breece Hall could be considered one of their, top receivers too. But I'm guessing Taylor, becomes the number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah,
in that group.
He could be second in targets, but for sure.
Yeah.
If you go back to Chicago, when Fields was there, Cole Kmet was a thing, right? I mean, he was the red zone guy, so that could be Mason Taylor for sure.
Smash those likes. JC says, smash those likes. Hit the like button for us. If you're not subscribed, do that too. Appreciate it.
So, I mean, we kind of talked about some players and, some kind of approaches to the Scott Fish Bowl draft. But is there any other advice outside of more strategic or more, approach to help the new player who's just getting in their first Scott Fish Bowl?
So one thing that I give this advice every year, and this year it's even more prevalent, is you got to remember that you're going to have 11 starters, right? So in a regular league, you're in the 9th, 10th round. You're taking those high upside flyers on backup running backs that could get a starting job. But in the Scott Fish Bowl, you're drafting your starters still. So you need to look at guys that are going to be starting from week 1. Because I know, you got those rookie running backs that everybody likes to pop in there, and hopefully they pop. But you're going to be putting them in their week 1 and as your starter. So you got to remember that when you're drafting in those late, 9, 10, 11 rounds, that's a starting player. So you might want to take a player that's not so sexy, but is going to have a week 1 role in the offense, and then wait on your high upside flyers when you get to the 12th and later rounds. Because everyone seems to forget that. And I see all the time in the mocks, they're drafting the dynasty darlings and the hottest Twitter guy that just, had a good catch in camp, and they're drafting him in the 10th, 11th, and, rounds. And I'm like, those are your starters. If those guys start week 1 and don't have a role in the offense, you have a empty starting spot. So find a receiver that's like a Jacoby Myers type that may not be as sexy as a receiver. He's not going to have this tremendous upside, but he has a role in the offense and he will put up points in week 1 and then hope that the guys you get round 12 and later end up popping for you. And then you can make them your starters eventually.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And, I'm one who likes to grab, other teams' handcuffs with the hope that, last year I had Bucky Irving. I think I got him in the 18th round or something. And, that was a lucky dart throw that worked out for me because I also had Jalen Wright and a couple of other running backs that didn't work.
Jalen Wright was one that I took a swing on last year and didn't pan out. I agree with that, Rick.
Yeah,
but trying to get those good, solid, wide receiver threes, and it'd be great to get Jacoby Myers because he's actually more of a wide receiver too than me. But getting the players like the I can't even think of.
You know who or two come to mind that people I feel like let slip a little bit, and it's because of their situation but they get the volume, they get the targets, their high target share earners is DK Metcalf, Pittsburgh, and Calvin Ridley.
Yes, those are two guys that I have on my list. Actually, I've drafted DK Metcalf in pretty much every mock because we've seen it before, right? Aaron Rodgers, say what you will about Aaron Rodgers. His number one receiver will be a highly targeted receiver, and DK Metcalf is that guy. And you give DK Metcalf enough targets, he's going to turn it into something eventually. He's a big body receiver. He's fast. He's, a red zone target. So, yeah, I love DK Metcalf for sure.
And when I targeted later was Shaheen.
Yeah, Rashid Shaheen. He's another good one. Because, I'm looking at my latest mock here, and, point in case Cooper Kupp goes in the 11th round, he's somebody that he's a starter, right? We know he has a week 1 role, but then someone took Emeka Egbuka with the next pick. We don't know what his role is going to be week 1.
Yeah.
We assume he's going to be a starter, but he's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin there. We don't know if he will be or not.
And also McMillan. So you got like 3 wide receivers who might be in front of him. Now, of course, the reports from camp have been, he's just like a veteran and, the most, prepared wide receiver that came out of the draft. But that's a bit more of a gamble.
Be careful with that camp news because I always point back to the year that Justin Jefferson came out as a rookie, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but they were saying that other guy was going to be the starter over Justin Jefferson that season, and everyone was picking him up and adding him, and then of course he doesn't see the field at all, and Jefferson has a historic rookie season that year.
And
wasn't it? It was Jalen Reagor that was going ahead of Justin Jefferson in rookie drafts that year, right?
Yep, it was.
Oh, that's almost as bad as me taking Rashawn Johnson at the 109 over Sam Laporta. That was dumb, right? I said that. I mentioned that because of Jamie's comment here too, right here. Oh, not that one. This one right there. There it is.
Yeah, Jamie's the Roshan guy. He talks about Roshan all the time.
His opportunity is still there this year. They didn't add anybody. It's him and Swift. I mean,
although they drafted the guy from Rutgers who, again, is a camp darling. So
one of those camp darlings, yeah.
7th round pick, right? I'm not so like I feel it's like there was four. How many running backs went in the 7th round?
A bunch.
I feel like only one of them is going to work out. I feel like they rarely work out.
I did some research on 5th round through 7th round running backs, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say it was like 192 running backs in the last 20 years were drafted from the 5th into the 7th. So 192 running backs, only 4 of them have been viable. It was Aaron Jones, Chris Carson, Isaiah Pacheco, and the Atlanta Falcons back. Who's the Tyler Algier? Those are the 4 from 5th to 7th round in the last 20 years. Almost 200 running backs, and only 4 of them were viable in fantasy. So don't put much stock in those late round running backs. I do think that there will be one that'll pop this year because there were so many that were drafted.
It was a deep draft, sure.
Yeah. So I think there will be at least 1 or 2 that pop this year, but I wouldn't put too much stock in those guys.
All right, so that's it. We made it through. I think we're done. Geoff, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure meeting you. Right away, I knew you were a good guy last night when you replied to my Aces Up post with this link right here.
Yeah, absolutely. Go donate there.
Right there. That's it. All donations matched up to $1,500 when you donate through this link, fantasycares.org/GF2. Thank you again for that, Geoff. And thanks for coming on and joining us and chopping it up with us.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on, guys. A lot of fun.
Why don't you tell the audience remind the audience where they can find your work?
All right. So, yeah, you could always find me on Twitter right there at Geoff Lambert 77. It's Geoff spelled Geoff. I know, weird spelling. All my stuff's over at goingfor2.com. And you can find our website. All of our content is there, as well as the YouTube channel. It's at Going4 2 Live. We do content pretty much all year round, Dynasty content. We do DFS content during the season. We do a little bit of everything. So come check us out. And obviously right now it's all about Scott Fishbowl.
So that's 77. Is that for Ray Bork? Geoff Lambert 77, Ray Bork. Red Sox hat?
That is the year I was born. So
I didn't even think of that. Nice.
I don't even want to say what year I was born, but they didn't have TV back then.
Rick, I think you were born the same year my dad was. I won't give it away.
I know. I feel like I should call you son.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie, for the shout out there too. Yeah, so me and my daughter's podcast, we're on episode 4 now. I think it's called "I Am No Jedi" podcast. If you're a Star Wars fan, you know what that quote is. I am no Jedi. My daughter's favorite character is Ahsoka, and she says that to Darth Vader the first time they fight. So yeah, we do that little show. We do like rankings and drafts and other fun stuff. So you can come check that out as well.
All right. Join Rick and I next Thursday at our regular time when our guest will be Addison Hayes of Dynasty League Football and 4x4 Football. Also, keep an eye out for more great shows on the Sports Affiliation YouTube channel. Kala's coming back July 9th. She's got Andrew Cooper coming on. And then she's also starting up a Zumba podcast where she's bringing on Zumba instructors and students, and they're going to talk about their passion for that and what it's meant to their life and all good things, all good vibes show. So looking forward to that, to checking that out. And Rick, you got anything else to add?
I'm going to be the Give Back shows off next Tuesday, and then the week following, having Austin Eckler as my guest. He'll talk about the Austin Eckler Foundation and a bunch of charity leagues that his foundation runs. So do look for us on Tuesday at 7 Eastern, and look forward to seeing everyone there.
Yeah, that's it. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed. Helps us out. We appreciate it. Geoff, thank you. Rick, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.